Hiring a cleaning business coach, is it really worth it? So in today's video, I want to take you through the pros and cons of using a business coach or a business mentor in your cleaning business. So regardless of whichever industry you are in, you will have come across consultants and mentors offering their services to help you grow your business. It is not for everyone. You've got to pick and choose who you work with carefully. And there are absolutely scammers out there that you need to be careful of. But if you choose and find the right person for your business, there is no doubt that they can have a real beneficial impact on how your business grows. So a disclaimer from my side, as many of you know, I also offer coaching services within my company, but this video is not designed to try and persuade you to use me or to use someone else. I've spent many thousands of dollars over the years on business coaches and mentors and continue to do that today. So in this video, I wanted to break down the pros and cons if you're thinking about using someone. So let's jump straight into it. So the first key consideration is how important is speed for you? What do I mean by this? So when you are starting out in your business, one of the key questions you'll have in your mind is, we want to grow the business, we want to be successful with the business, but how quickly do we want to grow? How quickly do we want to get to whatever goal we have in mind? So let's say your aim is to hit 7 figures in your cleaning business, so $1 million a year in revenue. That is a big goal for you. Some people will have a lower goal than that. Some people will say, okay, I need to hit $1 million in 3 years. Some people will say, okay, $1 million in 5 years, whatever that amount is. But it's the timeline here that is important, because you really have 2 options when you are starting out with your business. So the first option is to try to figure it all out yourself. You can take whatever experience that you have had from, say, previous jobs. Let's say you used to work in marketing. Maybe you can bring that marketing expertise into your company, or maybe you've worked with people and managed people before. That will help manage the cleaning staff side of the business. First thing to consider is, how much of it do you want to try and do it yourself using your own experience and learn on the way? If you go down that route, that is more likely to take you longer. It's not to say that you will never hit $1 million by doing it yourself, but it's more likely that it'll take a bit longer. There'll be lots of trial and error. The other thing to think about is that many people think doing it yourself is the cheaper way, but the other consideration you need to be aware of is that it could also actually end up being more expensive than if you used a business coach in the first place. Because let's say you are trying to figure out which marketing channels are most effective to get new clients. You're testing lots of channels out. Maybe you're testing Google ads, you're testing Facebook, you're looking at Yelp ads, you're looking at SEO. All those channels will cost money to test. Some channels will be more effective than others. Some campaigns you'll need to set up in one way to get better results. You want to avoid pitfalls in these other ways. When you're doing it yourself, you're more likely to waste money. You're not going to hit home run with your first marketing channel and know exactly how to run that marketing campaign from day one. Doing it yourself will take you longer, and often can mean that you waste money as well. So when you work with a business coach, someone who's maybe got to the position where you're aiming to get to, they can effectively give you a shortcut. They can tell you, okay, actually Google ads, Facebook ads, forget about Facebook ads, focus on Google ads, get really good at Google ads, put more money into Google ads. They can use their experience to tell you, which areas not to go down and which to focus on. So any marketing spend that may have gone into Facebook ads may have been less effective, and actually you want to take that spend and put it into Google ads. That would be something I would say. As many of you know on my channel, I'm a big believer in Google marketing. I think this is where your money is best spent. So for example, that would be one of the things that I would be saying, focus on Google marketing, put less emphasis on other marketing channels, and that means that you'll more effectively use your marketing budget. Point 1 is, how important is speed? So using a business coach will inevitably mean that you get to whatever goal you want to hit quicker, because effectively you're buying a shortcut. You're avoiding all these mistakes that person made along the way and just following the road that would have got you results that much more quickly. Point 2 is then the return on investment. So, regardless of who you're using, if you're using a one-on-one coach, if you're buying online courses, The price range for these products vary widely, from hundreds of dollars to tens of thousands of dollars. And as I said, I've bought programs across that range. What is really important is that you want to try to get an idea of what a return on investment might look like, because a $10,000 program sounds much more expensive than a $500 program, but that ignores what the return on investment would be like. What are you getting in return for that? The reality is I didn't really fully appreciate this until probably maybe my third or fourth coaching program. The way that I looked at it was purely in terms of recurring clients. As many of you know, on my channel, I'm a firm believer that the best way to grow a house cleaning business is to focus on your recurring client growth. One recurring client can stay with you for 1, 2, 3 years, and they can generate and deliver many, many hundreds and thousands of dollars to you in revenue. In my cleaning business, I knew that on average, a new recurring client would stay with us on average for 2 years. After we paid our cleaners out, that would leave us around $3,000 in gross profit. That gross profit is after we've paid our cleaners to do the work. That gross profit is obviously spread over those 2 years, but I knew that if I can onboard one new recurring client, that is effectively $3,000. And this really came about from understanding my marketing in much more detail. I know when I was looking at ROI for my marketing channels, I would always look at how many recurring clients did I bring in, how much money did I put in, and if the lifetime value exceeded what I invested in the ad platform, then I was running with a positive ROI, and I would just keep going, keep plowing money into that, because I knew that I was getting more money out of it than I was putting in. And this is the way that I started looking at coaching programs. As I said, if one recurring client is worth $3,000 to me in gross profit, where I got to in it was, well, if I take this coaching program, let's say it's $3,000 to make the maths really simple. Am I fairly certain that I will get just one recurring client, or at least one recurring client, as a result of what I'm learning in this coaching program? And the reality is, no matter which program you buy or which program you invest in, it is very likely that you get at least one recurring client. And as soon as that happened for me, it was a bit of a light bulb moment, because I basically just started buying lots and lots of courses. There are obviously some courses that are better, some courses that are not as good, some that are more expensive, some that are cheaper. But I knew that even if I was to pick up just one nugget of information that I could apply in my business, it was very likely that would mean that I could, retain and onboard and recruit at least one recurring client. So you want to think about the return on investment for these coaching programs you're on. That is not to say, as I said, a $10,000 program versus a $500 program. It is not to say that the $500 program is better from an ROI. That is not the case at all. But you want to think about, what am I getting back from this? If, the more expensive programs, you obviously need to be generating more money, more financial return for the investment as well. And as I said in point 1, the speed element is really important. If your goal was to hit $1 million in 3 years, and you've got another program where you think you'll hit $1 million in 5 years, what is the value of being able to hit your goals 2 years earlier? And again, you want to try to put a dollar amount behind that when you're thinking about whether you invest or not. So the ROI, the return on investment, is really important. Once you have 1 and 2 under your belt and you are getting to the position where you're thinking, okay, yes, I do want to use someone, the next question then becomes, who do you choose? And as I said, regardless of the industry, there'll be lots and lots of people out there. In the cleaning business side, in the cleaning industry side, one of the things that I did, when I was starting out in my business was that, the first question I had in my mind is, well, do I want to use a coach on a one-on-one basis, someone to work with one-on-one, have regular calls, or do I want to go down like the online course route where maybe someone has put together a series of video tutorials? There's less one-on-one inputs, but obviously by having a one-on-one program versus a more generic program, the generic program is obviously going to be far more cost effective. It's going to be cheaper than a one-on-one program, because effectively you're buying time from that person, and it's probably going to be much more expensive than if you're just reviewing and going through some online video tutorials. For me, one of the initial questions was, one-on-one versus online course. The way I did it was I actually purchased some online courses to begin with. They were cheaper. I had less budget at the beginning, and the idea was that I wanted to get a good grounding on all the basics about the cleaning business. And that was really good for me, getting the basics as I was starting out in my business. So I would usually suggest most people think about an online course to begin with, make sure they've got all the bases covered. And then after that, what I did was I then did use a one-on-one coach, because then I had some specific questions that came about as I was growing my business. There were particular things I remember around pricing and how I would deal with cleaners not showing up and calling out and all those types of things. So I started to get specific questions that would arise as my business was growing. So that was the way I did it. So, if you get to the position where you think, yes, I do need help, I want to get someone to help me, you want to think about, first of all, one-on-one coaching versus online course. So I know for me, for example, I used to offer one-on-one coaching. I don't, unfortunately, anymore. I just don't have the time in my calendar. So I then transitioned that to an online course, and we have a private members Facebook group as well. I'll put the details in the description below for those of you interested. That is the first question to think about. Once you figure that out, then it becomes a case of, let's say I want to go down the online course route. Okay, who would I then use? I tell people a great place to look at these Facebook business groups. In the cleaning industry, there are lots and lots of cleaning business Facebook groups. The two big ones that I tell people to focus on are the ZenMaid group and the Booking Koala group. They are actually two software providers for the maid service. So they provide booking software and scheduling software for cleaning business owners, but they have a very large and engaged Facebook group, both of them, many thousands of business owners in each group. And what I would do is I would just go in there, have a look at who is being recommended. You could even post and say any recommendations for courses or consultants that I can use, because a recommendation is always the best way. Work with someone that has, track record with working with people and getting results that you're looking for. So the recommendations is a great way to look at it, look at the Facebook groups, and that would be a really, really good step to go down. The next step in terms of who you decide is then trying to understand, okay, where do I need particular help? So for me, for example, I knew that, I'd come from, more of a technology background. So I was sort of familiar with software and processes and automation. And that's a really important part of growing a cleaning business, but there's obviously other parts of it. And I was less experienced with the people management side. So, how do you recruit cleaning staff? How do you manage them? How do you engage them? How do you make them feel, again, their loyalty? How do you engage with them? All those types of things. I had less experience with that. So I knew, as I was starting to grow my business, that was an area that I needed particular help with. And what you'll find is that, as I said earlier in the video, lots and lots of consultants, everyone basically has something helpful to say and something useful to say, and you'll be able to take something from every single person. I'm pretty sure about that. But then you want to quickly narrow down on which parts of the business do I need particular help with. So I knew that the next part of the journey for me was try to better understand the cleaner staff management part. So every single consultant will have areas of expertise. So for me, for example, it was technology and the marketing side. I was very lots of experience around that. So in my course today, I have a strong emphasis on Google marketing and technology and software and all those types of things. But if you needed some help with the cleaner staff management side, then there'll probably be someone else. So there'll be people out there that have different areas of expertise. And that is really like the next step on the process. You're using someone one-on-one versus the online course. Then you want to figure out which area within the business do you need particular help with. And then you want to go, try and find that person that has more experience and more expertise around that level. Once you've got that, then, the reality is you just want to get an idea of that particular person's teaching style. With social media, ideally you want to find someone where you get an idea what their teaching style is like. Everyone has different styles of teaching, but with the advent of things like YouTube and all the social media platforms, you can get an idea of how people teach, and you don't need to pay for All the videos on my channel, for example, are completely free of charge to watch. So the final step in the process would be understanding, and getting a feel of that person's teaching style. In this next video, I'm going to give you one of my modules from within my course, just to give you a feel of how I teach. This is a module for my coaching program, and it's really talking about why you need to be a specialist within this industry, why you need to find a niche within this industry to really grow quickly. So hopefully I'll give you an idea of how I like to teach these modules. So I'll see you on the next one.